radical.
Yeah,
Very,
it's
very
radical
edge.
acceptance, dude. Hey, we're live with the Risk Control Show. It's Matt and Steve, and we're up and running. We're just laughing here at technology once again. But we're coming to you with some breaking news on the New York rains and what that means for emergency preparedness. So, Matt, you were just giving me a what do you call that?
A
Meteorologist
tutorial, yeah,
education.
tutorial on weather events, as told through the blast of occasional articles sent to us because of major events like what's going on in New York today. So the northeast area of the country, New York City, and primarily right now, but apparently this is something that can affect the entire region up there, is having what is called a heavy precipitation event. So that means it is raining a lot. We're talking about 8 inches in some areas over the course of the day. There are hours where torrential rainfall, upwards of 1 to 2 inches in an hour, are going to fall, which can lead to flash flooding. Whole area is in an emergency. I mean, it's been declared an emergency. The Hudson Valley, Long Island, and New York City, by the governor of New York, has announced a emergency region area over there. I forget what they call that. But yes, basically everybody needs to stay home, and we see roadways where people are walking through rain up to their knees, like floodwaters up to their knees. We're seeing a terminal at LaGuardia is shut down. So the many of the subways, especially in Brooklyn, are currently shut down. And yeah, it's just there is a lot of rain, and I don't know. I guess New York, Steve, has been receiving a lot of rain this month, but even by
Right.
that standard, this was
Well, this is
unexpected.
up and over the top, and it's a lot of what we see here in Southern California too. Where what's interesting to me though is the preparedness level of the city, and
Right.
it's the infrastructure. And I think the administration has been talking about infrastructure for a long time.
Yes.
It's so funny on so many levels when we look at infrastructure. I was just with Francis last evening, and we were looking at the bullet trains
Okay.
in Japan, and
Yes.
it was so funny because I've ridden the bullet trains in Japan, and they're working on a new bullet train that's going to
Okay.
increase the kilometers per hour by 40 kilometers per hour, and that's a big deal, because
Yeah.
they're already
Yeah.
traveling at 300 and sometimes 350 kilometers. So uh, what was interesting on this historical perspective is the first bullet train over there in Japan was built in what year, Matt?
I don't actually know, but I know they've had them forever. So I'm going to say probably what, the 1980s?
1964.
Wow, even earlier than
Yeah,
that.
and
Okay.
it did 127 kilometers per hour, which that's fast for a big train like that. And in 1980 something, they had introduced the new one, which did 279 kilometers per hour. And so, what's interesting about this is over the years you've had this upgrade of the infrastructure and transportation. We
Right.
look at New York, and we look at even some of our clients. Like, some of our clients were replacing a main drain, or not a main drain, a main valve that came into the city. And when we looked at that valve, it had been there since 1902. It's 2023.
It's 100 years old. Yeah,
It's
I
over
remember that.
100
That's
years old.
nuts.
It's
Over
a
100 years old.
century and a quarter.
Yeah.
It's a long time. So I always find it funny here in Southern California is the infrastructure upgrades. We we do these things to save money, right? And so I
Right.
know New York is in a similar situation. It's a massive city. You can't just uproot an entire building and go in and replace this stuff. And there's
Right.
miles and miles and miles of underground tunnels and piping and all this kind of stuff. But you have to really think about the planning for the future. And even here in Southern California, it rains. It's nothing
Mhm.
like I've ever seen in St. Louis. you know.
Right.
It's nothing like I've seen in Omaha, Nebraska, or any of these other places. So what kind of befuddles me is the when you look at New York, this is not an area that is absent of rain on a routine basis.
No, it rains a fair deal in New
Right.
York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then to have rain that has been sustained, like, yeah, I get that you have this massive drop, but also looking at LaGuardia and, the water coming in and, um, all these things, like how do we kind of stave some of that off? But you look at Southern California, we don't have a whole lot of drains here in the South Bay. And we
Yep.
have all these little road culverts to, uh, you know, little dips
Right.
in the road to move rain and all this, but it's never enough when you get a little more than expected. It's never enough, and you have flooding down the streets and flooded streets, and people can't go anywhere. And it's like, really, in this day and
Yep.
age, like this is it,
Yep.
and all. A lot of people will say, well, we put those little culverts in the road so high speed pursuits that people would have to slow down and the cops could get them and stuff like this. And I'm just like, Can we just
Yeah. I
can
mean,
we just build a flat road and put some drainage in? Like
yeah.
seriously, you know,
It,
like
you know what's really funny, Steve, is that I mean, like, I've been living where I live for 11 years now. Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the roadways that are around me. I've had numerous rain events, and I know where the drainage issues are,
right,
right? Like, I know if I go on that road's going to be flooded. And I'm thinking, well, if I know, then someone at my city is bound to know.
right.
So why haven't they addressed it? It's like if you're to the point where you're not even going to drive down that roadway, there are probably roadways around where you live. You feel the same. It's like, oh, I'm not going down that road. I know what it's like when it's
Oh
raining.
yeah,
You-
I know what it's like when it's not raining, and I'm not going down that road. In front of our building out here, there is a a I don't know if it's a tree root or just damage or what has caused it, but what's
right.
funny about it is it's in the middle of the road, and so there's a raised portion, and when these big rigs go over it at speed, they end up bouncing their load, and it reverberates through the entire building. And I've reported this numerous times. Like, please come smooth this out so that we're not getting
Right.
all this damage to the building. Nope, nothing, nothing, nothing,
Nothing.
nothing. But I think this brings up the question about emergency preparedness. And I feel sorry for the residents of New York City, especially with their current mayor. I just don't
Yeah.
think he's quite capable of dealing with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. What what really comes to mind is we know that New York has been having a serious migrant issue as
Yeah.
of late. And we know that there's homelessness that runs rampant through that city, the same as Los Angeles. And
Yes.
if you take this type of event, how you need to get out and reach the people as soon as possible because
Yes.
all those people that are living on the street are being washed away.
Yes.
And this just begs to question is how deep does your emergency plan really go? I mean, we looked at a lot, Matt, and
Yes. Yes.
they're shallow. They're very shallow, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
uh, you know, you gotta you got to put in the work and the effort and the preparedness and the ongoing preventative maintenance on these things. I mean, we saw water coming in through those subways. Like these are all areas that need to be inspected on a routine basis. They need to have budgets attached to them so that you can do that. But going back to the difference between Japan and the United States, like they're not waiting for these types of events to make upgrades.
Right.
They're not waiting for these types of events to prepare. They're not waiting for these types of events to do their preventative maintenance, things like this. It's an ongoing, consistent basis. And one of the things that you see when you go to Japan is everybody's working. And they
Right.
have lots of people doing lots of positions. and we need more of that. We're in a mentality and mindset now where we like to do more with less, more with less, more with less, more with less. And I've talked about that with the complexity of risk, talked about it with burnout, and we see it now with the UAW workers and wanting 32-hour work week, more with less,
Right.
more with less, more with less. You can't keep going on like this. You know,
Yes.
you have to get in there and actually hire people and put them to work and
Yep.
get the work done. Um, so I'm looking at some of these. Yeah, it just begs the question. Like I heard the mayor say, uh, if you got to school, stay at school. Okay, here we go. How much longer is this rain expected to go? And this is the perfect thing. Like we talk about flooding, right, Matt?
Right.
And
Yes.
we go, okay, Southern California, we're inland. What's gonna flood? Bless you.
So, yeah, I covered the sound, but you can see I sneezed.
Yeah, I sneezed yesterday when we were doing that scouting location, and Matt's like, "Why are you spitting on the ground?" I'm like,
It's
"I'm not spitting. I sneezed. I sneezed." Yeah. Anyway, here we have school districts that are a little bit inland, and they go, "Well, I'm not near a dam. I'm not near a river. There's,
right.
we're in a drought. Like, where would we get a flood? Hello, hello." We just saw one with that little hurricane that ran through here, right? Palm Desert,
Exactly.
totally rocked. Palm
Yep.
Springs, I mean.
Yep. Death
Um,
Valley became Death Lake.
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So,
come on.
do you need to prepare for it? Yes. Do you need to run
Yes.
drill scenarios on it? Yes. Do you need to have procedures for it? Yes. So, again, this is another great example. How many examples do you need? I don't know. But Matt and I are trying to
Yeah.
bring attention to the fact that you can have unpredictable events. And that's why we call them emergencies. And that's why they're sitting in an emergency plan. But if you don't read it, you don't practice it, you don't study it, well, then you're just poopy out of luck.
Yeah. Exactly. Because nobody's going to implement an emergency plan on the fly that they don't already know. They're not familiar with what they need to do. I mean, I always imagine that in some kind of a Benny Hill comic fashion, as if an
Benny Hill,
emergency can be. Yeah, yeah,
the
I know that's
best.
for those some of our
We're going to
younger
get canceled
watchers.
now because we watch Benny Hill.
But just thinking of the music, right? The Benny Hill music is somebody scrambling to look through and read through an emergency plan during an active shooter event or something like that, or oh, the floodwaters are rising. What do I do now? It's like, well, you should have started this preparation months ago,
Right.
you know.
Right. That. So, let's see. Now, Matt didn't prep me that he was going to bring in Benny Hill, so I didn't have the soundtrack prep.
Did have the sound. You can dub it in. It's all good.
Read that emergency plan. Read that emergency plan. That is the best. And I love Benny Hill. And it's not appropriate for little kids. But I got to say, on a side note.
Well, the little kids don't even know what it is. Like even the 20-year-olds probably don't know who Benny Hill is.
My former wife got me the box set a long time ago, and I got to say, I just loved Benny Hill when I was a kid, and it was always, you look back at some of the things that were on TV back then, and you're like, how did that make it on
that stay
TV?
On? Right? Oh, I know.
But they had some great skits, some great comedy. But this is not, this isn't funny. I mean, as Matt says, the time to read the plan is not during the emergency. The time to read the plan is way before. So, again, golly, New York has been through the ringer on crime, on homelessness, on migrant populations, on
the wildfire smoke earlier this year. Remember that just totally the whole Northeast was affected by that.
And I keep thinking, they were talking about the stock exchange today, and guys trying to get there, and they were walking 2 by 2 with some wood so that they wouldn't float away. And I'm just thinking, at some point, part of the bigger, larger emergency plan, we have to start thinking about where these events are happening. Maybe we need to move our financial center.
Yeah.
Even going all the way back from to 9/11. New York is target for a lot of things, and I hate to say it, and I'm sorry, but you're in an area that keeps seeming to find itself in the midst of a lot of these things, and the whole world shuts down when stock exchange shuts down. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. And also consider that, but studies have been showing that these events are increasing. The heavy precipitation events, more hurricanes in Florida. We got hit by a hurricane this year, which is incredible for California to actually get hit by a
aren't we supposed to
hurricane.
call them typhoons over here, though?
Hey, I thought that too, but no, apparently it is still a hurricane.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it is. We're seeing a lot more extreme weather. The heat, of course. We've had the extended drought in the Southwest for probably over a decade now. These things continue to build on each other, and you're seeing an indication that, I mean, some are saying, or most are saying, that it's climate change. I'm not even going to touch that. I think it's climate change too, but I'm not even going to touch that. I know people feel weird about that topic. But the point is, for whatever reason it's happening, weather patterns are shifting, and we may need to move. Maybe that means the financial center of New York goes to Chicago, or is that, where maybe it's safer in Chicago. That's where the NASDAQ is, I believe, correct? Is in Chicago. So that seems to be a more stable region from a weather perspective. But even there, they get the freezing, the blizzards and freezing
I
rain and
think,
all
uh,
that. So
I think, you know, Los Angeles,
yeah, I mean, Los Angeles, though, we might be
Phoenix,
part of that this
Arizona,
heat wave, where it's like maybe it
Phoenix.
becomes where it's over 100 all the time here.
Yeah, but you're
I
in an air
mean,
conditioning build. Come on, Matt. Well, back to the schools for those of you who are tuning in. Here again, the mayor said if you made it to school, stay at school. So now, how do you deal with that? We've seen, and we just saw, we went out to a client and we're revising their plans, and hey, their emergency supplies haven't been touched in some time. We talked to another county. They don't even have emergency food stores and things like this. So I'm sure that there's incarceration facilities and detention facilities. Do they have food? Do they have water? I mean, do they have all the
right.
supplies that they need? How long is this lasting? How long are you going to be at school? Do you have
Right.
enough staff there? I mean, this could very well go into an overnight situation. Um, and as we know, most people are using the subway to get around in New York. So if
Yeah.
that's shut down, good luck. Um,
Yep.
so anyway, be prepared, stay prepared. Sorry, New York. We really are. Our hearts go out to you once again.
Yep.
And if you need help
Hope you
planning,
all stay safe out
yeah,
there.
stay dry, stay safe. Um, and this is a time to look out for your fellow person out there who may need some assistance getting off the street for the evening. So
Yep.
it's just something we got to think about when we keep bringing tons and tons of people into these areas, and we have to be able to maintain safety and
Yes.
security for everyone in all types of events. So this is another great reminder. The topic is not one I enjoy, but we're here. We got the reminder. Let's get planning. Let's get on top of this stuff. Let's stay on top of it, and let's get the resources behind it that we need. We don't need to digitize everything and have electronic scales for everything and power for
Right.
this and power for that. I mean, we talked about the ADA window shades recently. Is that a
Yes.
necessity, or do we need to get the basics done first? And I'd say let's get the
Right.
basics. So shout out to the boy, not the boy. I should revise it. Shout out to my boy, Tim, who we saw yesterday, and we realized that he used to listen to the show, but he hadn't listened because he didn't know who Matt was. So this one goes out to Tim, our main man, and we will talk to you soon.
See you guys.